Welcome to Campus Consortium's EdTalks webinar series. Our presenters for today's session are Jake Fowler, Director, Campus Technology from Kansas City Art Institute, James Hayes, Director of Education Technology from Ashland University, Daniel Horlander, Executive Director of Information Technology Services from Mount Wachusett Community College, and Dr. Carl Horvath, President at Campus Consortium. We will take questions at the end of today's presentation. Please enter the questions into the chat box or questions pane in your Zoom control panel. Without further ado, please allow me to present Jake Fowler, James Hayes, Daniel Horlander, and Dr. Carl Horvath. Over to you, Carl.
Lily, thank you very much for the introduction and administering today's webinar for Campus Consortium. And welcome to everyone who's in attendance and to our panelists today that have joined us. I'd like to give a shout out to some of the folks that are in attendance. Looks like we have quite a few schools out there from across the country. Looks like we have University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, Columbia State Community College. We have also Fresno Packer Collegiate Institute, American Institute of Alternative Medicine. We have Edward Waters University and Nazarene University, University of Texas at Dallas, and folks from Jacksonville, Florida, South Louisiana, Wilkes University, Bluefield State College, and I see our old friends, Lemoyne-Owen College. Thank you for attending today. And we have Miller Moat College as well. So quite a turnout, and thank you for joining us. This webinar, we have monthly webinars here at Campus Consortium, but this month we decided to focus on Educause and the important work that they do. And I'm sure anyone that's in higher education typically is aware of the annual Educause Conference and the good work that Educause does in helping institutions, with thought leadership, with networking and connections. And this year, the Educause Conference is October 26th to 29th, and it's in Philadelphia, and that's where I'm from right now. We are on site at the chosen city for the Educause Conference, and there is a large online turnout, and some of that is due to the pandemic. And the in-person is not bad, but I'm sure it's decreased due to the pandemic this year. So we wanted to offer an enhancement and an addition to what Educause is offering as it progresses. There's a lot to be involved with there, and a lot of content and that will come out of that. There also is thought leadership in terms of birds of a feather, discussion groups, and several meetings that happen on an annual basis that we consume throughout the years as institutions. And today we have three panelists that are joining us that are aware of Educause and have attended in the past. But for those who can't attend, we would like to provide some of the content and our own thought leadership with our current panelists around what's happening at Educause. And Educause typically reflects what is happening in the higher ed world. And certainly there has been a lot in the past year or so, particularly due to the pandemic. But before that, higher education was significantly changing, and not just higher education itself, but the students that we serve. So I'm going to kind of move on here and introduce each of our panelists briefly so you can meet them. But first, I would like to kind of talk a little bit about, we just discussed Educause. I'd like to kind of introduce our first poll question. So one, those of you who have joined some of our Campus Consortium webinars in the past, our EdTalks, you know that we'd like to be interactive and get the audience participation. And so no different this time. A lot of these questions that we'll be asking you will revolve around the topics of the day at Educause. To set up for the first poll question, Educause says, and this is most of the content we'll be dealing with today is coming from the Educause Conference website and also the 2021 Educause top IT issues. So Educause says one of the top IT issues for 2021 is that leaders will attempt to do more with fewer FTEs, technologies where minds will turn to and hopes will depend on productivity gains through automation and business process re-engineering. Our poll question to you audience and attendees is, how will you use technology, your institution, to improve efficiency and productivity? And please select all that will apply, and I'll just kind of read through them quickly. Improve online account management, one user login to access all apps, cloud hosting, supplement or outsource technology support, or improve student engagement and experience. And if you could just take the next 30 seconds to weigh in on the poll, we'd love to see what the audience perspective is on this important topic. So I'd like to tell you just briefly about Campus Consortium. Campus Consortium was founded in 2003 and has evolved over the past many years into different iterations. Our mission has not changed. It's to help institutions afford technology. Nonprofits do not have the resources, the finances, and the expertise that many for-profit companies do. So Campus Consortium mission is to try to help all higher education institutions to be able to afford, manage, acquire, access technology. And now it's more important than ever before. Everything that we've done, I'm a longtime chief information officer, and the pandemic just accelerated a lot of the plans that I had over a year ago and moved them right up to the front line. And so technology's taken a bit of a different perspective in higher education, which is good. So Campus Consortium is here to provide the support to higher eds, but we also have supported K through 12s and some healthcare as nonprofit healthcare as well. Here's the poll results. Looks interesting. It looks like the first, many of them are divided and even there, 39% in the first two. Improve online account management and one login to access all apps. So it looks like a fair amount of people are kind of bringing those processes on campus if they haven't had it before, if they have on-premise tools and systems, they're looking at how to improve that. Cloud hosting, some people are going to do that. Supplement technology support. A lot of people have tech support on campus, and it's not to replace it, but to enhance it as student expectations go beyond the workday into evenings and weekends. I guess that's more, kind of around that question. Improve student engagement and experience. Looks like a lot of people want to do that, almost 80%, and that's not too much of a surprise. Let me just move quickly to our sponsors. Our sponsors are Black Belt Help, Oculus IT, Quick Launch, and Unified. They are making today's presentation possible. And of course, Campus Consortium always has grants to help with a lot of the issues that we deal with in our institutions. And if we can help you either in expertise or in-kind grant, please contact us and we will support you. So I'd like to introduce our first presenter today, and that would be Jake Fowler, who's the Director of Campus Technology, Kansas City Art Institute. And growing up in Kansas City, Missouri, Jake remembers going to the Kansas City Art Institute on the way to his the neighboring Nelson Atkins Museum of Art on class field trips and thinking, what a cool place that must be. after working in a variety of technology-related jobs and running his own Apple-focused technology company. An opportunity presented himself to work at the institution, and he's been there for 14 years. And his role is a combination of what he loves the most, technology and art. And that is great. Thanks for joining us, Jake. You want to say a few words about your institution?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, a little bit of an update. I've been here 16 years now.
Oh, edit that. Okay.
Yeah. It feels like longer sometimes, but
2020 counts as 7 years.
Well, it kind of does. It
Yes.
does. I agree. Yeah, the Kansas City Art Institute is it's a 4-year nonprofit, private college of art and design. We're a little bit different from regular liberal arts college. We have obviously a focus in arts. It's interesting these days, we have a lot more students interested in more commercial side of things, animation, illustration, and graphic design. I mean, it seems pretty obvious they're looking for employment after graduating, but we still have a good thriving fine arts curriculum as well. And yeah, we've been around for, I can't do the math right now, but over 130 years now. So we've been around for a long time. I was here when we had our 125th anniversary. I remember that. So yeah, it's a great place.
Thanks for joining us, Jake. I appreciate that. And I'm sure you'll weigh in on some of our upcoming topics and questions that'll be coming up. Next up, I'd like to introduce James Hayes. Dr. Hayes is the Director of Educational Technology at Ashland University. In this leadership role, he supports students, faculty, and staff. And among the many programs are the correctional education program, the largest distance education program for incarcerated in the U.S. And James also teaches there. Prior to joining Ashland, he's worked as an instructional designer and adjunct public speaking instructor, and his career has run parallel with the exponential growth of online and digitally enhanced learning. So James, you want to say a few words about Ashland?
Yeah, I like to joke that we have two universities because, as I mentioned in the bio there, we have we're in 90 different facilities. We're in 12 different states with our corrections education program. And our approach is unique in that it's distance. It's incarcerated individuals, but they're learning on tablets and interacting through an LMS, just like students would at many of the universities we have represented here among the audience. But then we've got a traditional university as well. So to commingle that, we've got 3 different learning management systems. So I'm very mired and entrenched in the world of EdTech as we try to get all sorts of things to work and in environments where open access and integrations don't always happen in a corrections environment. So sometimes we do a 10-finger integration of typing lots of things back and forth, but happy to be here.
That's great, James. Thank you for that. Sounds like you've got your work cut out for you. So appreciate that insight into Ashland. And we also have with us today Daniel Horlander, Executive Director of Information Technology Services at Mount Massachusetts Community College. Dan Horlander is an experienced executive director with a demonstrated history of excelling in the higher education industry. He follows elastic leadership with focus on process and big picture objectives to achieve the information technology strategic plan. Daniel, do you want to say a few words about your institute?
Yeah, thank you, Carl. And just to give a little more background, I came from Illinois, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and moved to Massachusetts about 6 or 7 years ago. Went to Bunker Hill Community College first as employee, and now at Mount Wachusett. We're a school in north central Massachusetts, about 3,000 students, and really a focus on providing and teaching and learning for students of have a harder chance of getting into their programs and working with them. So now being in the community college experience, it's really opened up my eyes compared to like a 4-year I used to have at Illinois. So.
Yeah, I think there's one thing that the pandemic has underscored, and that is, really the underserved, and we really depend on technology to deliver what we couldn't deliver in March of 2020, which was in face-to-face instruction, and it really has emphasized who has technology and who's don't. So your roles as IT leaders in your institution are very important, and it's good to hear a little bit about your institutions and the challenges you face, and I'm sure we'll hear more as we move on. And here's our next poll question. Students may eagerly embrace campus-based education after the deprivations of the pandemic, or they may find classroom-only learning provides an impoverished learning experience compared with hybrid and online learning. This is again from Educause resource materials. And the poll question is, how will you invest in technology at your institution? Minimally, we want to return to pre-pandemic in-person as much as possible. Optimally, we want to have a hybrid instruction and in-person or on campus. And maximum, maybe you're exploring online programs and pushing more courses to online, as well as virtual systems and support for faculty, students, faculty, and staff. So if you could just take, audience, please, the next 30 seconds to kind of weigh in. Please select all that apply. We would like to see where your institution stands. I'd like to open up with a couple graphics that are from Educause top IT issues for 2021. And there's a lot of blending between these topics and the topics and themes that are used in the current Educause Conference underway here in Philadelphia. And, one of them, of course, is transformation. But this is like a three-part response to the impacts of the pandemic, but also how higher education has evolved recently, and the impacts on institutions. Being nonprofits, many institutions really have to cut back and be more creative. And again, I'm sure everyone's heard this, do more with less. Just to take a moment to look at the latest poll results, how will you invest in technology? Your institution looks like most people will be hybrid, optimal, having permanent technology solutions for instruction and services likely, but also not getting rid of that on-campus experience. And many schools pride themselves on a great on-campus experience for students. So it looks like most people are in that area. And it looks like a lot of people are moving toward online programs and services. And if you read a lot of the Educause material and the news reports in higher education, many institutions are investing heavily in online now that, the impacts, if you read a lot of the Educause information, a lot of the impacts are permanent. The longer the pandemic continues, the more permanent some of these virtual, online, and technology solutions will be in place into the future. So thank you for weighing in on that poll, attendees. Much appreciated. So you can see this, this table, and it really kind of covers everything that we're going to talk about today. There's also an interesting chart that's included in the top 10 IT issues. This PowerPoint presentation also has a link to all these resources that we'll be using today in our discussion, and you will be able to get a copy of this after the presentation's over. So let's start with Restore, and there's 4 bullet points I pulled out of Restore: cost management, online learning, financial health, and affordability. So cost, of course, key for many institutions. Some institutions are very tuition dependent. They really rely on their enrollment to generate a revenue stream into their institution. When the pandemic hit, so many institutions lost revenue in terms of residence halls, in terms of meal plans, in terms of sporting events or on-campus events, in terms of the bookstore. All that revenue kind of really dried up, and they had to look for other sources to sustain themselves. But they also had to cut back. And so cutting back means not funding programs or even eliminating some programs. It also meant, furloughs, in some cases, layoffs of staff. And when you have more to do with less, that makes it quite a challenge to continue as an institution. So the whole thought leadership concept behind what Educause does and what we try to do at Campus Consortium is try to find another way to do it to preserve your mission and your objectives and the quality of education for your students. So more institutions may close, as we say. I mean, we've been reading about that in the Chronicle of Higher Education for the past couple of years. Institutions are going to merge, they're going to close. And there have been a few mergers here and there. And cost management will be more important than ever. Of course, that's pretty obvious in the face of a lot of lost revenue. Business process reengineering, and that is, really being looked at to create efficiencies across your university. Effective online and hybrid learning, and we kind of saw in the recent poll that some schools are going to be doing integrations to that, and institutional leaders will work harder than ever to find other sources and support from state and federal levels due to the pandemic. Anybody want to weigh in on any of the cost management? I'm sure you all are dealing with cost management in your institutions.
Absolutely. The thing that saved Ashland University was HERF funds. So that would be, the assistance that the government pushed through. Naturally, with the corrections program, we have a lot of Pell students, Pell ESI students. So that was able to see us through, let us weather the storm. But the other factor is that these cost management concerns aren't necessarily going away, even if the pandemic does end. Nationally, we're seeing a decline in population, and the number of students, traditional undergraduate students, incoming cohorts are smaller as a result. Like I'm in Ohio, and we even, the census, we lost a House of Representatives seat because of our declining population. So knowing that, you almost have to be expecting to operate in a bear market.
Right. Yeah, that's gotten more difficult, and you're absolutely right about the demographics have changed. And so that's before the pandemic, we saw that coming, right? So that was an issue. And now you pile on the pandemic, and that's a whole nother set of issues that come.
Certainly.
All right. So another restore issue is online learning. What if the pandemic's not resolved in 2021? As institutions open, close, and reopen, it will exhaust faculty, staff, and students and resources. So how are we looking to relieve that exhaust if the pandemic doesn't resolve? How are we going to standardize on the technology that we've implemented? We're going to keep it. And also educational community, education continuity due to incorporating digital as business as usual. That's going to mean some of that on-campus experience will be virtual experience. Any comments on online learning?
I'd like to chime in. And so again, we're an art school, we're a very small art school. And we had a very hybrid year last year, and it was very difficult for a lot of students. In fact, there's a story that one of our departments, actually the fiber department, was loading up looms onto trucks and delivering them to students, apartments and houses, so they could continue to work remotely, in that March, or just after spring break, when we went online only for a while. So last year we were hybrid. A lot of the departments, of necessity, again, the fine arts departments, ceramics, sculpture, the students don't have the tools, right, to do those to do the work with the materials that they need to work with for their majors. For the more digital majors, like my wife teaches in illustration, and she was completely online with all of her classes, and she hated it. The students hated it, quite honestly. So it's interesting for us because for a lot of our majors, it's just not possible, or it's very difficult to do an online thing. But also a lot of our faculty, especially after the last year, we've had we've had those thoughts too, like providing some online content, but a lot of our faculty have not been interested in doing it at all. And again, especially after the last year where some of them were forced to do it, there's even less interest in doing it. So it's interesting for us. I think we're kind of an exception to the trends that are out there right now.
Right. Yeah. There's so many, every institution is the same, but every institution is different too, right? Like we all need email and a student information system, learning management system. But I guess that's where that sameness kind of stops, because you do have unique challenges, unique populations, unique programs and associations. And so that's going to definitely, create different needs for the institutions than others. So,
yeah.
I'd like to just take a moment to give a shout out to Maria Cartwright from Columbia State Community College in scenic Tennessee. So thank you, Maria, for joining us. Well, yeah, we talked about cost, but let's talk about financial health, because really this is survivability, is it not, for institutions? Like, making sure that they do have the financial health to weather this storm and the demographic storm. So what if the pandemic's not resolved? So the investments that IT leaders made to address IT are going to become permanent. We kind of talked about that. IT leaders will have to be more creative, as if you guys are not creative already, right? You have to think out of the box and do more with less. And you have to compete for resources along with the rest of the university for the basic tools that rest of the university uses, right? So you need to get funding to do what you need to do. And as broadband insecurity increases, how are we going to help those students? And IT professionals can help business units by providing minimum standards and helping by distributing some equipment. So any thoughts on the financial health issue?
I have one area I can cover. With the business units, our use of our enterprise system is very minimal. We do a lot of manual processing, and we only use paper. So we are strategically right now, while we have the money to invest in that system to automate as many pieces as we can, which will take several years, and also get a document management system. So I think because, especially with hybrid work too, people are taking paper home, and it's a mess. So I think that will be very valuable several years from now, for systems to be more automated. Students will be able to get to see their information in their self-service portals more quickly, like financial aid processing, for example. So there's a lot that can be done, and I think that will help the units be able to weather the storm as money is less available.
And you're not alone in that. I think that everybody here can talk to all the things that they found out were being done on paper in 2020.
Yeah, in terms of, we did talk a little bit about straining faculty and staff as the demands increase and resources shrink. Maria Cartwright also had a question regarding faculty incentives. Anything happening like that on your campuses, to encourage a more effective online teaching?
We have a program. We have a sort of a department called SITE, which is the Center for Instructional and Teaching Excellence, and they did give some compensation to faculty. I think it was $200 or $300, and it was a small number of faculty. They were groups of about 35 faculty. We had 3 different sessions or courses over the summer, and it was designed at boosting their acumen with digital tools and leveraging the learning management system. So we did one in 2020. We did one again this summer in 2021. And it's interesting to see the level of technology adoption and the difference in the questions that were asked in 2020 versus in 2021. In 2020, it was very much, how do I do this? It was, we did a lot of, we have a Kaltura video hosting solution, but essentially, YouTube video tutorials on how to do X, Y, and Z distributing those out to faculty because there was, and because there was a need to do it, everybody consumed that. But the other thing you got to be aware of is there's only so much bandwidth that faculty have for change. And you're right, it's a tough situation because the way it works at Ashland is our faculty are only on contract for the academic year, which does not include the summer. So how do you encourage these people to take training over the summer? The easy answer is to pay them, and the hard question is where do you get that money from?
Exactly.
But,
yeah, that finances are always an issue, and incentives do revolve around, some kind of reward, financial reward like that. So our last restore issue, I believe here, is affordability and digital equity, since we're talking about money. So it's the need to better provision and support students' access. And that really came into focus clearly with the pandemic, pushing everyone online. And I recall at my last institution, working with the city of the school district in the city of Philadelphia to allow parents to drive to our parking lot where we had Wi-Fi so they could submit assignments and communicate with their teachers in the K through 12 grades. And there were many underserved areas of the city that there is no internet access and there is no technology, and so they depend on going to the physical school every day. And when everything shifted online, and will likely in some cases stay online for some institutions, how do we help our students be able to continue to go to school and not ostracize them from education? So the prolonged pandemic might exacerbate this issue and place a bigger dependency on technology. And some students may make choices like not to continue and drop out. And that's not good for the students, and it's not good for the institutions. Any feedback on any of this as far as digital equity and affordability?
We're actually facing some of those issues right now with our foundation year. The first year students are now, as of last year, required, or as of this year, I guess, required to purchase a laptop. We have found that there are, again, we're a very small school, so it's, when I talk percentages, it's not that many students, but there are a few students that can't afford it, or they have something but it's not adequate to run. I mean, again, we're an art school, so they need to be able to run Adobe and all that stuff. So we're exploring options on helping to supplement those laptop costs, or I mean, we're just now starting these conversations. So it's an interesting problem. It's complicated.
And yeah, and that's a great point, Jake. And absolutely, in terms of digital equity, it's not just so much getting the equipment, it's also getting online so you can access these cloud-based systems that we all depend on. And I was on the board for our regional research and education network, and many parts of the state had access to it, but then many parts didn't, the rural areas. And so they had to find creative ways to get internet access, which always wasn't the highest quality or the most reliable. So really things that I hope that the current administration addresses in terms of infrastructure, so we can really minimize the digital divide. I'd like to roll the next poll question for our attendees. Another comment here from the Educause materials referenced today. Educause says institutional leaders have evolved from treating student success as a student's responsibility, treating it as higher education institutions' responsibility. Rather than assuming that students have equitable access to education, leaders are recognizing that it's the institution's job to do this. So question for the audience is, how will you support technology at your institution? Access to technology is now part of your DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. Investments are planned to help all students access online learning, not just some students. And equitable technology access is now part of our student retention plan, perhaps, along with student success. We're making sure that technology has been included with the many other factors that contribute to student success. So please take 30 seconds to answer our current poll question. I'd like to move on to evolve. So we have restore, we're at evolve, we're going to move to transition shortly. But again, quick review of the evolution. Once you've restored yourself, you've gotten yourself back into a position, how are you going to change your institutions? We've already discussed quite a bit of change. Student success, of course, is often and always an important goal for many institutions. Equitable access, online learning, information security, and financial aid. So student success is by far, very, very, very popular and a big part of mission and objectives for institutions. So if the pandemic accelerates the change that was already underway, we talked about technology change and the changing demographic, students who rely more on technology and have grown up in technology. Also, some institutions, will need advisors and efforts to reach out and help and support students, not just technology, but in other ways. In how do we provide counseling and other types of support for students remotely? Again, a student can go into a counseling office and institution and get some aid. Perhaps they can't do that online. But for institutions who I know have moved to online advising, how do we make sure students get what they need? Not just academic advising, but mental health, also extremely important. Here's just, before I open it up for our panel, here's the results of the latest poll. How will you support technology? Looks like most people will. Investments are planned to help all students access. Accessibility absolutely is critical to keep students engaged. And then also some institutions are including it. 45%, that's a good amount as part of their DEI policy. And also now part of their student retention plan to a lesser extent. So